Being shy is extremely dangerous and will ultimately hurt you and your growth in your careers. And I say this from experience because at the beginning of my career, I was extremely shy. But it's not that being shy is the thing that's bad here or the thing that's dangerous. It's one of the qualities of being shy, which is being very passive. When you're shy, you tend to be very passive and you tend to just go with the flow and you don't want to cause any disturbance. You don't really want to make any waves. So even if something makes you uncomfortable or you think that something is not really necessary, you don't speak up. You just go with the flow. So in this video, I want to talk about my experiences growing up in my career, right? Throughout my career from school and into the professional industry of architecture, and how being very passive, one of the qualities of being shy actually hurt my growth in the career. And it all started with school. Now, I've never been someone that's really shy or timid per se, but I definitely have been very introverted. I still am very introverted. I tend to prefer to be alone most of my time, or not totally alone, but family, right? In small social circles rather than out at a club or at a party. I prefer, like one on one or small groups of conversation. Always have been like this. The difference is that currently I'm not afraid to speak my mind, and I'm definitely not afraid to tell someone that I think that they're wrong, especially if it inconveniences me. Their decision being a wrong decision inconveniences me in any way. So let me elaborate a little bit. So back in school, in architecture school, it's very common that your professors will tell you to do things, and they want you to do things a very specific way. And being very passive and very timid and not wanting to speak up or talk back to my professors, I would kind of just do what they wanted. I would just go along with whatever decision that they made. If I thought that the design should head in this direction and they thought it should head in this direction, I would be like, you know what, they're probably right. Let me do that. And that was my experience throughout my whole career. And it was not super uncomfortable, to be honest with you. I just felt that this was the way that it had to be. A lot of people around me were doing the same. It wasn't until one of my later design classes in upper division that I was constantly butting heads with this one professor. And he would tell me to do something and I would do it, but I really didn't understand why I was doing this. It was kind of like I was recreating his vision. And so what ended up happening was that at the end of that semester, when that professor asked me, why does your project look this way? I really didn't have a good explanation. The reason that it looked that way was realistically because he kind of created this design. He created this design through me. I didn't actually have a good reason as to why I did this design, so I couldn't defend it. It kind of looked like I had no interest, like I didn't know what I was doing. And so I actually failed that class. I failed a very important design class in architecture school. And it was very, very dark times, because I really wanted to be an architect and I really wanted to pursue this field. But I just felt like, man, if I can't even get through school, maybe I'm not even worth this, or maybe I'm not even worth it for this. So I didn't quit out because I really had a passion for architecture. And when I look back, I had never failed a class before. This was the first time ever that I had failed a class. So I decided to go back to the drawing board and see what exactly, why did I fail that? I did everything the professor wanted. Because of that, I didn't really have passion for the design. I didn't really create something that I wanted to create. So from here on out, I'm not going to listen to anybody anymore. I'll take people's suggestions, but if I don't agree with it, I'm not going to be afraid to stand up for myself. Because the reason I was so passive in the past is because I didn't want to piss anybody off. I didn't want anybody to feel bad. I didn't want anybody to feel like I thought that they didn't know what they were talking about. And as a result of this, I suffered. So I told myself, you know what, moving forward, when I retake this class, I'm going to just do what I want to do. And if the professor thinks that my work is too simple or that it's not that good or whatever, I don't care. I'm going to do what I think is right. And that's where there was a change in my mentality and in my behavior moving forward. So I was still introverted, but I stopped being passive. I started being more assertive. And I'd be lying to you if I told you that it worked out like some Hollywood movie right off the bat from the beginning, where I changed and I became like the hero of the movie. No, that didn't happen, and it was a struggle. It was very difficult and not natural for me to be assertive. It was very, very difficult. So I continued on through the rest of my school years, proposing things, doing what I wanted to do. And I don't want you to think it was like from a rebellious perspective. Like I wasn't rebellious. I wasn't like just doing things just to be different. I was just kind of following my intuition and my creativity. And if people told me, hey, I think your rendering would look better like this, and I didn't think that, I'd be like, well, that's a good opinion, but I'm not going to take that into account because this is the way that I did it. So that's it. And at first, it was very uncomfortable. People weren't really used to seeing me this way, other professors and whatnot. Um, it might have come off as a little abrasive at first, just because it was new to me. Being assertive was very new to me. And the same way that there's a fine line between being confident and being cocky, there's like a very fine line between being assertive and just being an idiot or a jerk. So at the very beginning, I had to kind of force myself. Like I was like, man, I'm not doing this in the right way. Like I'm coming off as a little bit mean or a little bit harsh, but this is what I must do in order to get my point across, that I don't want to change what I'm working on. I don't want to risk making everybody else happy and then failing anyway. Like what's the point of that? Because then at the end of the day, I wasn't even happy. Like at the very least, if I'm assertive, I might come off mean. Like I possibly could fail again. I might be seen as mean, but hey, at least I did what I wanted. So my portfolio is gonna like reflect my own decisions. And so I struggled a lot throughout my semesters and eventually getting a job. But I'll tell you what, I eventually got better at it because it started to feel more natural to me, because I realized like, hey, I'm not being mean, and this other person shouldn't take it personal that I'm not taking their decisions into consideration or their choices, because if this is under my purview, then I get the say in this. So what ended up happening as I started to work in the actual industry, right? When I got my first job, I had that like wound inside me from when I failed a class, where I was afraid to let other people tell me what to do. But at the same time, this was my first architecture job. So I didn't want to cause too much ruckus, right? And not to mention, when you go from architecture school into your first job, it's almost like they wipe your slate completely clean. And everything that you learned in school is not really applicable in your first job. So you do feel really lost. So all your confidence goes out the drain. So here I was building up my confidence in architecture school. And then once I got to working at a firm, all that's gone. And now I feel like crap. There goes my confidence. So I wasn't at zero, but I was like at 10%, basically. So I was like up at 80% in architecture school. And then I dropped down at 10% when I got my first job, right? And like confidence and all this progress that I had made. So I started to struggle with that as well. What did this mean for me in a professional setting? It meant that my boss would tell me, hey, we need this done. I wouldn't really think about it. I would just do it. Then like a week later, my boss would come up to me and be like, hey, why'd you do this? Well, you told me to do that last week. No, no, no. You misunderstood what I told you to do. That's not what I told you to do. This is what I told you to do. So now I look like an idiot and I wasted time. Now I feel like I'm wasting resources. So little by little, I started to realize like, crap, the same thing is happening to me all over again, but in this professional environment. So what I started to do was I started to keep a sketchbook with me. And every time that my boss would tell me to do something or undo it, I would write it down. And sometimes they were in a hurry, so it was tough to do this, but I didn't care, right? This was like me practicing on being assertive. I'd be like, hold on, hold on, hold on. I need to make sure I fully understand what you want me to do. So I'm writing this down. Just give me a second. I don't have time for this. I have a meeting right now. Okay, well, then understand that if you go on your meeting and this is not fully complete, I don't feel comfortable starting this because mistakes will be made. And I just don't want to do this to the company. All right, we'll talk about this after the meeting. Or, all right, fine, I got a couple more minutes. Let's go over this. So I'd write down in the sketchbook what they wanted me to do, and I would show it to them. And I'd be like, listen, this is what you're telling me to do. Did I understand that correctly? Yes. Or no. Okay, what did I mess up on? Jot those down, whatever. Okay, so I'm going to be working on this for the next few days. From that point on, whenever I had the boss tell me that I did something that wasn't supposed to be done that way, or maybe they meant something else, I would just show them a sketchbook. I'd be like, look at this. Remember we had this meeting? Oh yeah, because the thing is that your boss has a lot of things on their mind. Your project manager has a lot of projects on their mind. Whoever's above you has way more things on their mind than you do. So it's not their fault that they might get ideas jumbled up in their head. But if you show them this reference that you guys both looked at together at some point in the past, it's almost like, oh, you know what? You're right. This is wrong, but you're right. It's not your fault. I remember that meeting. There was a misconception. So little by little, I started to be more assertive in these kind of ways. And then it ultimately got to the point where a project manager would tell me, hey, we need to have a meeting next week to cover this, this, and that. And I'll sit there and think about it and I'd be like, what a waste of time that meeting is going to be. Now, I wouldn't say this, but I would think about it. And then maybe an hour later, right, once I've had lunch and I've let the thoughts simmer in my mind a little bit, I'd reach out to them and I'd be like, you know what? You know that meeting that you want to do next week? Yeah. Yeah, I already talked to so and so. We're scheduling it for next week, Wednesday at 4. I don't think that meeting is needed. What do you mean it's not needed? We need to cover this, this, and that. Yeah, but we don't have this information yet. So what are we going to talk about in that meeting? Oh, but we should have the information by then. It's not going to happen by then. What do you mean it's not going to happen? Listen to me. We're working on this right now, and this is going to get to this, but it's going to take like 2 weeks to get to that point. So if you want to have a meeting, we could have a meeting, but just understand that we're just going to be wasting a lot of time, as most meetings end up being. Why? Because there's nobody that sits there and like kind of thinks about what information is needed. There's no like meeting agenda, right? And if there's a meeting agenda, nobody thinks about what exactly like if the information is actually going to be there on time. So little by little, I started to be more assertive. I started to be, for lack of a better word, more of a pain in the butt when it came to things. I would analyze things a little bit more. I wasn't like a total gatekeeper, and I'm still not. Whoever works with me currently, they know that I'm not a no person and I'm not a yes person. I can make anything work. I might not have the answer myself, but I can find the answer. But to find the answer, I need time. So if your thing is that, hey, I need this right now, no, that's not happening right now. I can get you this for sure. I might not be able to get you this personally, but I can find someone that can get you this. But it's not going to be right now. That's how I am now. How I was in the past was, oh, okay, you need this now? Oh, okay, I'll be right back. 30 minutes later. Hey, do you have the thing? Yeah, I don't even know where to start. And it was just a disaster. So I'm the guy that just rips off the Band-Aid now. And I tell the person, listen, You want this. I can get it for you 100%. I've never done this before, but I can do it. That's not a problem, but it's going to take me time. Today, it ain't going to happen. Tomorrow, it ain't going to happen. Give me till Friday. I'm way more assertive right now. And it's taken me many years to get to this point. And so that's why I wanted to talk about this video, about how being shy is dangerous, guys. If I have one advice for you guys, it's I don't want you guys to be the most extroverted person that you know. I think you should continue to be shy if you're shy, and you should continue to be introverted if you're introverted. But at the very least, guys, start to add being assertive into your toolbox, into your repertoire. Start to say no to things. Start to question things at the very least. If your professor, if your boss tells you something, don't expect that thing to be right. As a matter of fact, I think one of the best habits that you can pick up early on in your careers, whether you're in school or whether you're at a firm, is to start to question everything. Now, I don't think that you have to sit on your ass all day thinking about things and questioning things all day long. But if you're the type of person like I used to be, where someone tells you jump and you ask how high, maybe it's not natural for you to question that. So I'm not telling you to immediately revolt against the person, right? Because in a perfect world, you would be like, no, I'm not jumping. Are you crazy? But realistically, you're not that kind of person yet. So you have to start small. And one good way of starting small is by, instead of saying, yes, I'll jump right now, thinking at least for 10 or 15 seconds and being, why do they want me to jump? What are they getting out of this? Is it really worth anybody's time, me jumping right now? Could my time be better used elsewhere? And then jump. So that's a super stupid example. And thinking about having someone ask you to jump and you agreeing to it, obviously is just cringy and it feels horrible. But I say this, guys, because realistically, we're not all assertive. We're not all there yet, but we should strive to be. And the point of this video, if you mistook what I'm saying as just be an asshole, be someone who's just causing waves just because you, for the hell of it, that's not what I'm saying, guys, at all. I'm saying it's okay to be shy. It's okay to be introverted, but at the very least, start to practice being assertive. You need to be assertive, not only in life, but specifically in this career of architecture. Because in architecture specifically, there's always, at every point in time, way too many cooks in the kitchen. And if you're just following the directions of all the other chefs in this kitchen, you're gonna be making a whole lot of crap all the time. You're never gonna get recognized for anything in your life. You're always gonna be working behind a computer, always fearing if your job is gonna be given to someone else. You're always going to be in fear. You're always going to be in doubt. You're always going to feel like you're less than. You're never going to feel like you add any sort of value to the company or to the work that you're doing. And so the quickest way to avoid all this is to start practicing becoming assertive. It's the only way that you're going to get past all the heartache that I've ever gone through. If you're early on in your career, listen to these words and start practicing being assertive. I don't have a book for you because I never read a book on the topic. It's just something that I broke my head doing. Like I said, at first, it made me seem very abrasive and a complete jerk. Eventually, I figured out the correct balance on how to be assertive, but still friendly. But if there's a book that you guys can find that you guys can start reading, reading about that could help you and give you some techniques or some ideas, look into that, because I don't have any actual techniques that I can offer you except for just doing the thing. Just practice being assertive. But I'm sure there's 1,000 books on the topic. And if you guys are in doubt, look for them and drop a comment if you find one that's good, because it'll help other people. But if there's one thing that you could take away from this whole video, is don't let your introvertedness, don't let your shyness, don't let your passiveness get in the way of your growth. Practice on being assertive and get what you want. And don't be afraid to be wrong. A lot of times when you start to be assertive, you're going to be wrong a lot of times. That doesn't matter. Everybody's wrong at some point. Just get it out of the way. Just get it out of the way. You're going to be wrong. Everybody's wrong. But be assertive. All right, guys. This has been a pleasure. So, till next time, guys. Peace out.